Before we begin, if you're a mom or caregiver dreading Maycember, I have something for you. The Mom's Spring Break Bundle. For just $27, you get 26 expert resources, including my Minimum Effective Day mini course. Doors close April 17th. Grab it at positivelyproductive.com/bundle26. Before we go any further, I want to say something that I believe is the most important thing in this entire episode, and that's you do not have to get rid of anything. Now, I know that might sound strange coming from a productivity and organizing coach who's encouraging you to declutter. That's what we're talking about here. But one of the core principles I work from is that decluttering is not an end in and of itself. It's a tool. And like any tool, you only use it when it serves you. You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and today's topic is one that's been on my list for a while. If you've been listening for any length of time, you know we talk about clutter a lot around here. I've covered the simple system for decluttering within the context of whole life decluttering, and I have an on-demand workshop about that. Just last week, we tackled calendar decluttering, clearing the commitments and obligations that are taking up space in your schedule. And I've gone deep on physical clutter of all kinds. Clutter is prevalent in our lives, and as such, a big topic around here, with a dedicated playlist on the podcast page of the positivelyproductive.com site. So if you are curious about clutter in general, definitely go check that out. There's a specific type of physical clutter that's in a category all its own. And I know this because it's one that my clients struggle with most. Honestly, everyone I speak to struggles with this one the most. And I've been invited to be a guest expert about it because it's so important and so challenging. Sentimental clutter. A bunch of old t-shirts you never wear is one thing when it comes to decluttering, but a gift your mom gave you, something that represents your childhood, a piece of clothing that belonged to someone you've lost, that's an entirely different conversation, and that's the one we're going to have today. If you've ever stood in front of a box of old cards or keepsakes and felt completely frozen, this episode is for you. I think you'll agree with me that sentimental items are so much harder to deal with than ordinary clutter. And I think it comes down to this. Objects become stand-ins for people, experiences, and versions of ourselves. There's a reason psychologists describe the way we bond with objects as a form of emotional attachment, particularly when those objects are tied to someone we love, especially if they're no longer with us, or a time in our lives that felt meaningful. Items trigger memories, and when we fear losing the item, what we're really afraid of is losing the memory or the connection that goes with it. If you've lost someone and their belongings are still in your home, those objects can literally feel like you still have a piece of that person with you. And of course you don't want to let go of that. Then there's what I've come to think of as a protection layer that clutter can offer us. Even when it's sentimental clutter, it can serve as a kind of buffer between you and the outside world. When we're grieving or emotionally overwhelmed, especially, we often don't have the energy or the desire to interact with the world. We turn in on ourselves to heal and to have quiet and alone time. We definitely don't have the energy to make dozens of small decisions, and decluttering is all decisions. In fact, I often reference it as deferred decisions. So decision fatigue is a very real trap when it comes to large amounts of clutter or challenging clutter. And in the case of sentimental clutter, it could even be both. So with all of this weighing on you, it's no wonder that the stuff stays put, And often you don't even try to sort through it. Avoiding it just seems like the better choice. Keeping it, avoiding all of that process, that's a very human and very common response to pain. So I understand it. But there is something you can do. Another possible layer I want to mention that often goes unspoken is guilt. Sometimes objects trigger guilt about the relationship, about things left unsaid, about the life you're living now that someone else can't. And guilt makes us hold on tighter. You may think to yourself, if I hold on to this, it shows I'm still honoring them, right? If I let go, does that mean I've forgotten, that I'm disrespecting them? Thoughts like these are very complicated underlying thoughts that are attached to this clutter. So it's really no surprise that we want to play it safe and we tend to hold on to it. While this is common with situations of grief, loss, and change, it happens with gift obligation too. Someone gave you something with love and intention. A relative, a dear friend, a child who was very proud of what they picked out. And now it sits in a drawer or on a shelf. And between you, me, and the podcast player, you don't love it. But you feel like getting rid of it would be a betrayal of the relationship. I've worked with so many clients who are holding on to things not because they want them, but because they feel they have to. I'm here to tell you there's a way out of that trap if you want it. Before we go any further, I want to say something that I believe is the most important thing in this entire episode, and that's you do not have to get rid of anything. Now, I know that might sound strange coming from a productivity and organizing coach who's encouraging you to declutter. That's what we're talking about here. But one of the core principles I work from is that decluttering is not an end in and of itself. It's a tool. And like any tool, you only use it when it serves you. If keeping something brings you comfort, grounds you, connects you to something or someone meaningful, that is a completely valid reason to keep it. Full stop. And if you're not in a place to make these decisions or choices, and you need to heal more before you can even consider this, that is the best reason to not push yourself and focus on your well-being first. Full stop. The phrase I use with clients is, if it's a maybe, it's a keep. That might be the opposite of what you've heard from other decluttering approaches. And I mean to be the opposite of them deliberately. When you're dealing with sentimental items, the cost of letting go too soon is more than I would ever want you to pay. That deep, sinking feeling when you realize you gave away or discarded something you can never get back, that pain is not worth whatever floor space or drawer space you gained. So if you are not sure, wait. If you think I'm saying this to be kind, I am, but I've also lived it, and I've used this advice on myself. I kept a pajama top of my dad's for probably 15 to 18 years after he passed away. He's been gone 28 years now, for context, and when we last moved, I was finally ready to release it. It sounds random when I say it out loud, but that's the thing about sentimental items. They're meaningful to you specifically, and that's all that matters. They don't have to make sense to anyone else. For me, I wanted to wear something at night at first to feel close to him. It reminded me of him, and it was soft and comforting like his hugs. Over time, it meant something when I saw it in the drawer. It was a moment in time when I would think of him because I saw it, and it would trigger grief, which was difficult, but I also knew it was good for me because every time we grieve, we heal. Then it became something I kept moving around. I would tuck it away, and I was not using it. And when I was finally ready to let it go, I let it go. But up until that point, I honored my gut and my heart when they quietly whispered to me that I wasn't ready yet. Grief has no timeline, and neither does decluttering. And that applies beyond grief, too, to any object that holds some kind of emotional weight. You're ready when you're ready, not when someone else thinks you should be, not even when you think you should be. There's something inside you that will tell you when it's true. And another important point about clutter, all clutter, including sentimental clutter. I like to use a quote from Peter Walsh. I've been sharing this one for years. Clutter is not just the stuff on your floor. It's anything that stands between you and the life you want to live. I think that's a beautiful guide. If something isn't standing between you and the life you want, if it's part of the life you want, it's not clutter. When you do arrive at a place where you're genuinely trying to decide, having the right questions can help. Now, these aren't meant to pressure you into a decision. They're meant to help you get clear on what you actually want and how to process these items. You can ask yourself the following. What does this item represent to me? Is it the person, a memory, a version of myself that I'm not ready to let go of? Or maybe I am? Getting specific about what the attachment is can make it easier to know what you actually need and why you're actually keeping it. Is keeping this item serving me or is it holding me back? Not is this clutter, but what role is this playing in my life right now? Or what role has it played? And does that apply now? Sometimes it's actively helping you heal, and sometimes it's keeping you stuck, and only you know the difference. Am I keeping this for me or out of obligation? If you're keeping something purely because you feel guilty letting it go, that's worth considering. In the case of a gift, the person who gave it to you most likely wanted you to feel good, not burdened. Actually, when it comes to things that you receive after a loved one passed, I think you can confidently say they wanted what was best for you as well. Honoring a relationship doesn't have to mean keeping every physical object that came from it. If I imagine letting this go, how do I feel? Not how you think you should feel. How would you actually feel? Relief is a valid answer. So is dread. Both tell you something true. Use that information to decide where you stand and to decide your readiness. Is there a way to honor the memory without keeping the object? Or without keeping the full object? Whether it's without the object entirely or modifying it or a part of it, there are so many options you can consider. Memory quilts, photos, journals, sharing the story of an item through storytelling, so like an oral tradition instead of the object. There are ways to carry meaning forward without carrying everything forward physically. Now, if you've worked through some of these questions and you're finding that, yes, you are ready to make some changes, I have some approaches for you that can make the process more manageable. Now, these tips aren't so much how to get rid of things, but they're ways that you can more easily take some first steps. The first is to start with the low-hanging fruit. Now, some people are bothered by this phrase, but it simply means that you get to choose the easier things. You don't have to begin with the hardest things. You don't get extra credit for doing so. Start with items that have less emotional charge. Duplicates, things you genuinely don't remember using or owning in the first place. Things that belong to a phase of life that feels complete or that you don't feel that you need to revisit. In the case of something really sentimental and a loss of a loved one, when my mom passed, I started with the majority of her clothing, especially the everyday stuff, the stuff that was handed back to me. I'm not talking about really special items, but just generally speaking, the majority of her clothing, I knew that I could donate and other people could use. And it wasn't anything I felt connected me to her. So that was an easy place to start. And when you make these easier decisions, they make way for harder ones. It's a great way to build your decluttering muscle in any kind of decluttering. Another way is to use macro decluttering to buy yourself time. And what I mean by that is instead of going piece by piece, you gather big categories of items into bins or boxes. You take clear inventory of what's inside. That's an important part of this. And you can move it out of your primary living space, maybe a dedicated room if you have it, or a closet. This allows you to take back the space you're currently using without having to decide about everything immediately. So it's kind of a deferral, but it's a very intentional one. You can prioritize what you're going to go through and when. And the decisions will come easier when you give yourself this kind of breathing room. The key is to inventory it and to be clear about a follow-up date to keep reviewing these items. Now, speaking of deferring, you can defer items with a specific purpose as well. If you struggle to decide on something, you think you might be ready, but you're still feeling a little unsure. You're like so close. You can try a maybe box. This is maybe, and I really think I'm going to, but I don't want it to leave the house just yet. Box up those items you're considering, label them clearly, and set a calendar reminder. So it's similar to the other deferral, but this is very specific, where you'll review the items, and it could be 3 months, 6 months, a year, a week, whatever feels right to you. And you'll revisit it then. You may feel differently. You may feel exactly the same. Either's fine. The maybe box is a legitimate delay tactic that lets you take a partial step. You can reduce rather than fully remove. If someone gave you a large collection of items and you want to honor it, or you even like the items, you don't have to keep all of it. Consider keeping the favorites. Consider keeping a sample set, if you will. 10 of the most meaningful pieces instead of the full 50 can make a big difference in how much space everything is taking up. A curated representation rather than the entire thing can also be easier to maintain. And it'll still give you the feelings that you need. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And lastly, be intentional about where things go. When you do decide to release something, thinking about where it goes can make it feel more like a gift than a loss, like what I mentioned with my mom's clothing. So first you could ask, does another family member want it? Or then you can say, could it go to a cause that your loved one cared about, or that you just know in your community that the items could be helpful? If it can help someone else in a meaningful way, sometimes the worry about where things go can make us hold on to them. And when you realize those items can help someone else, it can soften the feelings of loss. A quick note, if you want the complete framework for working through how to declutter, so you can match that along with these tips, the Simple System is a great place to start. And I will link to episodes about that as well as the on-demand workshop in the show notes. As I mentioned earlier, I've been asked to speak on this topic more than once because it's one that so many people carry quietly. Sentimental clutter isn't just about stuff. It's about identity, loss, love, change. And navigating it well means honoring all of that, not rushing past it so you can clean up a space. So here's what I want to leave with you. You get to decide. You decide what to keep, what to release, and when. You decide what counts as honoring someone. You decide what ready feels like for you. No one else gets to set that timeline, not family members who are eager to help and mean well, not decluttering philosophies that tell you to keep only what sparks joy, and not me. I'm here to give you tools, but I'm not here to decide for you. I am here to support you all the way, though. If this episode brought up some feelings around loss, there's a grief and trauma playlist on the Positively Living podcast page of the positivelyproductive.com website I encourage you to check out. And if you're at a point where you want some support working through the sentimental stuff, or any clutter in your life, physical or otherwise, I'd love to help. You can find out more on my coaching page at positivelyproductive.com/coaching. An easy, low-risk place to start is with the Clarity Call. Whatever you're holding on to right now, hold it gently. That includes your heart. And trust yourself to know what to let go and when. Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. I hope this episode inspired you, and I encourage you to think about one action you can take based on today's topic. Then share it with me so I can cheer you on. Go to positivelyproductive.com to connect with me, read blog posts, and access links from each episode and download resources.